Namuna and Minashi? Will you do that? Any difficulty, any doubt in mammary gland structure? No? Okay, Mamuna? Any doubt?
Awesome.
Okay, perfect. So in reproductive system, we learned about how the system operates, how it works, what is gametogenesis, how we make gametes, and also our organs make hormones, and how it regulates a very complicated system in a timely manner, in a temporal manner. Okay, it starts at a particular point and it ends at a particular point in females, especially menarche and menopause. Now, reproductive health is more about studying what could go wrong and what things are required. Why it is just the application of why we studied the previous chapter. Why we want you to know each gender, each sex, and what are the structures, what could go wrong. So let's first define reproductive health. How will you define reproductive health? Namuna, if this question comes in 1 mark, define reproductive health. It has 2 terms, reproductive and health. If I say define cardiac health, what does it mean, Namuna?
If a person is
Yes. Continue. Yes, you're going on the right track. I can feel it. Are you answering about cardiac health or reproductive health?
Cardiac means in the sense like heart and all. If a person is healthy with heart
Yes.
and
If
such
a person
organs.
has a healthy heart and a healthy circulatory system, it's called a cardiac health. So doctors say that your cardiac, like you must have seen that fitness trainers always talk about cardio, you know.
Yes.
You have a good strong, you should do cardio, you should include cardio in your daily routine, because cardio is when you run and you train your heart. When you run, the heart beats faster, and then when you're resting, it beats slower, right? So you should also train it to be able to take up, start working or pumping up with respect to the needs. So when we exercise, we need more and more oxygen, right? So heart should also be in a habit to switch from a resting stage to a exercising stage. A person who does not exercise on a daily, on a routine basis, if all of a sudden you make that person run because of some problem or any emergency, that person may not be able to feel good. The cardiac health may decline, right? So it's good to keep your heart pumping up. So what is reproductive health? You're right about cardiac health. So now tell me about reproductive health. How will you define reproductive health?
If a person is sexually or mentally healthy.
Mentally, why do you say mentally? Mentally is, I think, isn't it mental health? So there is something called physical health, mental health, reproductive health, cardiac health. You understand?
Yes.
So health is overall, overall well-being. Then you define it as physical, so overall physical well-being. Then you define it as mental, it's like your mental well-being. Like then it could be your spiritual well-being as well. Reproductive health is, write down. Reproductive health means overall, the overall well-being, the overall well-being of a human, the overall well-being of a human in all aspects of reproduction. In all aspects of reproduction. Now, reproduction is a process, right? And when we say, is it written? Reproduction is a process, correct?
Yes.
And when we say overall well-being of a human in all aspects of reproduction, we mean right from spermatogenesis to the development of the organs, to the functioning of the organs, to the effective fertilization, and also effective child bearing, like effective pregnancy, good pregnancy. So in males, Can you tell me what could be the problems? What could be the problems, reproductive health related problems in males? Because now you know the system of the males. So tell me certain problems that can happen in males which are associated with reproductive health.
Maybe the sperms wouldn't be as healthy as of the normal one, and they would die between the process of it only.
Perfect. So let's start here. Reproductive health related issues. Let's first understand the issues, identify the issues. Okay. All this thing is given in NCERT. You have to go and read the chapter, but somewhere in some paragraphs things will be there. So let's make it more clear. So for males, tell me, you are saying something, Namuna. First thing could start with sperms, right? What all problems could be with sperm? First is the male is not forming enough sperms, right? Yes.
Yes.
So I told you that in one ejaculation, per ejaculation, normally how many sperm should be there in a healthy male?
Millions.
Millions. More than how many did I say? Any approximate number? 300 million. Remember that?
Yes.
Per ejaculation. So if you are making 50%, 60% less than that, which means you already have less sperms. And look at this. Look at from this perspective. Even after releasing 300 million sperms per ejaculation, fertilization and pregnancy is a chance event, right? It's not ensured. Yes or no?
Yes.
I mean, all the female tract has the capability to kill all the sperms, and it's just a chance event that one of the healthiest among all will reach and fertilize the ovum. And if a lot of factors comes into play, timing, so if sperm enters the female system, so there's a 28-day cycle, right? First 5 days are bleeding phase. If any sperm enters during the first 5 days into the female tract, what will happen? Howsoever healthy it is, will it be able to fertilize?
No.
Because there is no egg to fertilize, right? And everything is moving down. A huge outflow of blood and tissues is happening, so sperm just cannot go inside, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Let's start from day 16 to 14. If the sperm goes there, will it be able to fertilize? The chances will slightly increase now, because now the system is not opposing with the flow, but it also depends on whether ovum is present or not. It has to fertilize the ovum, right? So if it enters on day 7 or day 8, sperms can survive. They have a limited resource, correct? They have a limited resource, limited amount of fructose that is present in the semen or inside their cells. Yes or no?
Yes.
They do not have unlimited supply, because what supplies fructose to them? Seminal vesicles. Remember? So
Yes.
they enter, they go into a mission, a one-way mission with limited supply, like soldiers on a war, on a mission. So once the supply diminishes, and once the female reproductive tract overpowers them, they will be killed, right? And there are many things in the female tract that are ready to kill sperms, because sperms are foreign particles. I told you in the last class. So if you enter around day 7, day 8, you can survive. The sperms can survive there for 2 days at max, or at very max 3 days, let's say. But still, it is around day 11. The ovum will still not be there, right? So fertilization will not happen, right? So the sperm has to reach the site of fertilization approximately at the same time when the ovum is there, right? So it is a time regulated thing. Do you understand? It's all about timing, perfect timing. So that's why it's a chance event. And if you are starting already with half the number of sperms, do you think that it is going to be easier, any easier? No, right? So the first issue can be with spermatogenesis related or sperm related. Now, if we made sperms, then it could be motility or viability related. Yes or no?
Yes.
The epididymis is not functioning properly or something like that. What other issues could be there in male system? Minashi and Mammon? What could be other issues? If everything is fine with the sperm duct and everything, then can still there be some issue? The glands. If the glands are not secreting properly, okay,
Okay.
so there could be issues or disorders with the gland. Then there can be issues with the secondary structure. If testes is fine, everything is happening fine, sperms are also being released and also being ejaculated, but still the secondary structure, which is the penile structure, the penis, it plays an important role during the sexual intercourse, during the effective transfer of the gametes, right? So there could be something disorders with the penis, which is called, the most common is erectile dysfunction. Remember we studied about this in the male system also. The erectile tissues, corpus spongiosum, inside the penile structure do not function properly. So it could be erectile dysfunction. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. What could be the issues in a female system? One is again related with the gametes. Yes, Mamana, you are saying something?
Yeah, maybe irregular cycles.
Yes. So irregular cycle means ovulation is not happening effectively, right? Issues with ovulation, correct?
Yes.
Or one thing which is very common in today's time is issues with the ovary, ovarian disorders, or ovarian conditions like, just anyone has heard of PCOD?
Yes.
What is PCOD? It's also known as PCOS. PCOD is polycystic ovarian disorder or polycystic ovarian syndrome. Okay, polycystic. What does the word polycystic means? Polycystic ovary. Poly means
Many.
many. Cyst means cyst, tumors. Cyst is tumor, right? Tumor like structure, cyst. There is a cyst in an organ. So there are many tumors in the ovary. If there are many tumors in an ovary, will the ovarian cycle be regular?
No.
No, it will get affected. The follicle development will get affected. The secondary oocyte production will get affected, and ovulation will get affected. So these could be problem with the ovaries. What could be other problems? The hormonal, right? Hormonal misregulation, which will cause the uterine cycle to also go haywire, right? The uterus is not becoming ready at the right time, and the timing between uterus and ovary, if it goes uh, miss, like if it's misaligned, then that could be one problem in holding pregnancy, correct?
Yes.
Yes, right. So these issues we are only able to identify because we have studied chapter 3 and we know about all these both these systems in detail. Now when we talk about, but this is not uh, the only thing. Hormonal misregulation, apart from just affecting the physiology, also affects the moods and the behavior and the emotionality, or I think when Mamuna used the word in the beginning, mental health. Did you mean by that the behavior which is affected because of hormonal surge? So females on their, when they are at the, when the hormone starts peaking up and peaking down in their menstrual cycle, it said that they become more moody, you know, They sometimes feel like eating something very sweet. Sometimes they do not feel like doing something. Sometimes they are just they gets irritated easily. Sometimes they do not want to do a certain kind of thing. So that mood fluctuation starts, right? And it's
Yes.
true, because hormones are actually signaling molecules. They are messengers, and they are just they're sending messages here and there and everywhere in the body. The same thing happens during pregnancy as well. So during pregnancy, as the pregnancy develops, and as the baby develops, as more and more hormones starts coming into the picture, into making the whole system more complex, females, it is very difficult for a mother to adjust with the hormonal surge, the mood swings, the behavioral changes, also the pain that is associated, because your body feels like your spinal cord bears a lot of weight. You, and in order to walk, females have to tilt a little towards, lean a little towards the back, which causes them regular back pain and cramps. And also the stomach muscle, because as the baby is developing, the stomach wall is stretching, right? The muscle is stretching, the skin is stretching. So they, something which is known as birthmarks. After the female delivers, the abdomen of the female has a lot of birthmarks, right? Pregnancy marks, they are called. Do you understand what I'm talking about? They're stretching.
Yes.
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 All these things are happening. And so in the reproductive health, what also comes, so just write down here, overall well-being. The word overall is used to, it includes physical, emotional, behavioral, all the three aspects: physical, emotional, and behavioral. Okay. And also social these days, because there is lots of society related issues with reproductive health issues. You know, there are many stigmas associated. One of the very common stigma is about infertility. If there are issues, so both these issues, what do they lead to? Infertility, right? And for a very long, from a very long time, and even still, most of the places where they do not know about what is the issue, most of the times the female is being blamed for not giving birth. So there is, she is not giving a child to the family, so the female is always kept at blame, right? Whereas the problem could very well can be with the male system as well. And same is for the birth of a girl child, you know that these are also problems associated with reproductive health, which are society based problems. So in overall well-being, social well-being also comes into picture. Do you understand why and how? Yes. So let's start with some of these problems. For example, first let's start with a concept called sex determination. So you know what is sex determination?
Yes.
Yes, what is it? Two words: sex and determination.
To determine whether the baby is a boy or girl.
Yes. And when can we do it? Effectively, when can we do it? See, theoretically, we can do it right from the first day of fertilization, right? When the zygote is there. But for that, we have to hurt or damage the zygote, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
We just need to check whether the zygote has XX or XY. So in humans, you know, so there are different types of sex determinations in different organisms. For example, in humans, it's called XY system. Okay, XY system, and it is decided genetically. So if a if a baby has XX, that is going to be female, and this is called homozygous condition, right? And if a baby has X and Y, then it becomes a male, and this condition is called heterozygous condition. Now if it is XS and XY. So this is XY system. In other organisms, there could be another systems. In some organisms, it is the male which has the same kind of chromosomes, and females have different chromosomes. That is called ZW system. But you don't have to study about all that. I'm just telling you. In reptiles, some of the reptiles, it is temperature based. So when the temperature is, so if you incubate the egg at higher temperature, it can develop into males. And if you incubate it at lower temperature, it will develop into females, or vice versa. Do you understand? So that sex determination depends on the temperature at which the eggs were incubated before something came out of it. In some organisms, the sex is not a fixed thing. So like some snails, they can change their sex after the birth. So some organisms which can change their sex after the birth, which means they were male when they were born, and when they find it suitable, they convert into a female, and then they can become males and females. Do you understand that? That happens in some snail species. Or some organisms are born with both the sexual organs in the same body. They are called hermaphrodites, that we already studied in the last class, right? So there are many different ways of determining sex in the nature. We will be focusing on XY system for humans. And to determine sex, we need to check this one pair of allosomes, right? Also known as sex chromosomes. Theoretically, we can do it even in a zygote, but practically, what do you think? When can we do it practically? In a baby, let's say in a human, if you want to check the gender of the baby, when and how can we do it?
After the birth?
After the birth? No. If we could only do it after the birth, then all the problem with female infanticide and just abortions would be solved. We can do it, we can determine it when the baby is inside the womb. That is why female infanticide became a problem in countries which are like which are patriarchal, male dominated societies are there, which are especially the developing countries. There are many social reasons behind it. So people see a female child or a girl child as a burden, right? In many countries, in many social setups, because associated issues is that there is a dowry system at place in many places. So if you want to marry your girl child, it's going to be a burden. So no one wants a girl child, everyone wants a boy child. Or the patriarchal setup, which always thinks that men or boys can take the legacy forward, like what we call it, the vansh forward. You understand what I'm trying to say? So this technique of sex determination can be misused a lot. And how can we determine it? Remember I told you something about amniotic fluid? Amniotic fluid, people. Yes, what was amniotic fluid, Minashi? Amniotic fluid is the fluid in which the baby is present, right? And there is a membrane around it. Remember I told you this?
Yes.
The easy way to, like, sometimes you just take out that baby if that is not burst. So if the water is not broken, that is called my water broke, the female sometimes say it. So if that membrane is not broken and you take out that baby, remember wheel birth, we discussed all these things, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
So there is one technique called amniocentesis. Amniocentesis. In this technique, what we do is we just take a little fluid, amniotic fluid from the which is surrounding the baby. This way, we are not affecting the baby. We are not touching the baby. We are not poking anything inside the baby. You understand? So we are not doing any harm to the baby, but with a syringe or with something, we can collect the amniotic fluid. We just collect the amniotic fluid. And in that amniotic fluid, there will be cells. Like when the embryo was developing, certain cells will just be present loosely around, right? when the whole body is formed, there will be certain cells present in that amniotic fluid, and all those cells will belong to the developing embryo, correct? Yes or no? And from any of the cells, if we can isolate the DNA and chromosomes, and then we have to just check whether it contains 2x chromosomes or only 1x chromosome. So if it contains 2x chromosomes, it is the female, and if it contains 1x chromosome with 1y chromosome, it is the male. So this way we can check about the sex of the baby when it is still in the birth. Sorry, it's still in the womb. Okay, and that process called amniocentesis, the sex determination process. This is banned. This has been banned in many countries so that it is not misused for female infanticide. Female infanticide is where unborn female babies are aborted, okay, because they are not parents do not want a female child. So that's why this thing is banned. You are not allowed to know the sex of the baby before it is born in countries like India. It's banned, okay? In many countries, it is legal, you can know of it. And in fact, in many countries, there is a culture of celebrating the sex of the baby before the baby is born. So have you seen these video footages or in some movies or something where the father does not know about it, and then there's a balloon which is brought in front of the father, and the father has to, or the father and mother both have to poke the balloon, and if something blue comes out of the balloon, it's the boy, and pink comes out, it's the girl, things like that. And then they celebrate that there's a baby boy or a baby girl about to come, and they actually make all the arrangements accordingly, right, from the room to everything that they start buying for the upcoming kid, is because they already know the gender of the kid. But in many countries, for legal reasons, to prevent unlawful activities, it is banned. So write down. Amniocentesis is the process in which the sex of the developing embryo can be determined by examining the genetic makeup of cells present in the amniotic fluid around the developing embryo. Present in the amniotic fluid around the developing embryo. Write down next point. Amniocentesis is legally prohibited. Amniocentesis is legally prohibited or is banned to control female feticide. Which means killing or aborting female embryo. So if the word female feticide is used, it means when it is a fetus. Okay, feticide, it's the same thing. Pesticide, Remember, what are pesticides? Which kill pests. Feticides is killing fetus. Infanticide is, there is another word called female infanticide. What does this mean? It means infant. What is an infant? What is an infant, Mamuna? Killing girl child after it is born. Okay. So if it is after birth, remember we call it's like zygote, embryo, fetus. After birth, it's called infant, right? Neonatal infant. Okay. So it's killing infanticide. Is it clear? All these words are clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And if it is the word is femicide, what does this mean? Femicide. It's killing females in general, like female, grown adult female, due to gender discriminatory reasons. Okay, that is called femicide. So don't get confused with all these similar sounding words. Is amniocentesis clear to you? Yes. Now this abortion, let's talk about this first. What is an abortion?
Killing the fetus through maybe pills or methods.
Yes. See, the word abortion or abort simply means to end something prematurely. So you started, let's say, you may have heard this, that abort the mission, fall back, abort the mission, right? It means we started something. So something started, in this case, pregnancy started, and you abort it. So it has not finished, but you are aborting it prematurely. So that's called abortion. But abortion of pregnancy, medically, like in terms of biology, is called MTP. MTP stands for medical termination of pregnancy. Okay. MTP. Is it clear? Medical termination of pregnancy. Now this MTP could also be important, like it can also be something which is required sometimes. So under what conditions do you think abortion becomes necessary? So if you are doing it because you already know the gender of the female, then it becomes female feticide, because the fetus was normal. You just do not want a female child, so you are just doing a MTP on it, and that is illegal. But there are legally MTP is also done. Doctors do MTP when it is required. So what do you think could be the reason to legally kill a embryo?
The mother's health is not okay.
Sorry, yes, Minashi, come again.
The mother's health is not okay.
Yes, if the developing fetus causes problem to the mother, there is a condition. It's a very rare condition, but it is a condition. It's very unfortunate condition where the mother develops a very vigorous immune response and allergy to the developing fetus inside the body. Now, if a mother has problems with the fetus, that's why in the last chapter when we were discussing, I told you that a growing embryo behaves similar like a endoparasite. Remember endoparasite from last class? Yes. Remember, Namuna?
Yes.
So it's like a parasite. So mother's body sometimes starts showing allergic symptoms like rashes, which like red patches all over the body, which starts deteriorating the health of the female. In that case, it is clear that the female, the mother, is not able to sustain the pregnancy and give birth to the baby. If the baby will develop any further, the mother's life is at risk. So in those conditions, a medical termination of pregnancy is legalized and doctors do this. What other cases you can do MTP? If the child, if the embryo has some fault, you understand? And if you get the fault, so amniocentesis to do sex determination is not legally allowed, but you can undergo tests which will help you to know whether the baby which is inside the mother's womb has any genetic disorder or not. So there are many genetic disorders like Down syndrome and Tau syndrome, Klinefelter syndrome. So these are all genetic disorders. You know about this? Chromosomal aberrations. We discussed this when we were discussing diploidy, Down syndrome.
Oh yes, sir. But many of the people also like they are fine with giving birth to children who are Down syndrome.
Exactly. So that is the parents' concern. So if they get to know it after the first trimester when the baby is formed and all the vital organs are there in place, so it's like a humanitarian emotional attachment that there is a baby, it's a living life inside. But if you get to know about something which is abnormal in the first, second, or the third week, which is less than a month, where the organs have yet not started to develop and the embryo is just a mass of tissue, is trying to form layers, but it has no proper shape or organ, or we say that it's not a baby yet, it's not a life, we do not consider it a life yet. In that time, if you get to know that there is some disorder and the baby, if it will develop further, it will have very serious abnormalities with which it has to survive, or with which it will not be survived for long after the birth, then it is advised to go through MTP and get another pregnancy. Do you understand? So if you already know that the baby has some lethal mutation, there is some abnormality, a chromosomal abnormality, even if the baby, then the baby will be born, it will die, or it will die in the womb only. So it does not make sense to continue that pregnancy. Yes? Yes or no?
Yes.
But if you know that the baby will be born and will have a life, it will not just be a normal life, it will be, he will be differently able, then it's parents' choice. Parents give birth to the baby, they also take care of it. And once something is born, any human is born, he has all the humanitarian rights. You cannot discriminate a human on the basis of any disability or any abnormality or any disease or any disorder, correct? You are not allowed to discriminate even on the basis of those diseases and disorders which are communicable or infectious. They just have to be treated. They need to be treated with in isolation or proper care, but you should not legally, it's not allowed that you discriminate anyone on the basis of their medical conditions. So yes, you're right, it's the parents' call, but medically they have an option. That is what I'm teaching you. You understand? Because these tests tell us, for example, it's always advised nowadays that before, when we are matchmaking, before getting married to someone, we always see that what kind of a person he is, what all things. So in some cultures it's called whether both the people are aligned properly to each other or not, right? So better than matching, along with matching everything else, you should also match the genetics of the father and the mother. You know, a lot of genetic disorders which will happen to the kids can be avoided before marriage. So if you get to know that the boy or the man is carrying a abnormal gene for a certain disease, you understand? Let's say this is the male, I'm just telling you, it has two chromosomes. Yes, every chromosome in the male will have two copies, correct?
Yes.
And if say one copy is faulty, this copy is faulty, and this copy is okay in a male, and you also know that in female also there are two copies of the same chromosome carrying the same gene, and if in female also there is one copy which is abnormal, faulty, and one copy which is okay, and if both the faulty copies come in a child, that child will have a very critical disease that will be very fatal for its life. The child will not be able to live a healthy life for very long. So you can avoid this kind of a matchmaking, right? Because the chances are that this copy from father and this copy from mother can actually come and make the child seriously ill, correct? Yes or no? So can we avoid this condition? Or in, it's not like you don't have to marry. You can also avoid the condition by gene therapies. There are many therapies which are available for different kind of disorders, but we can do something. Do you understand? And it's better than putting your child at risk. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Or even if you get married, like if these two get married, because it's a chance. The chance is also that these two can come. The chance is also that one faulty and one normal copy can come. In which case, if it is not a dominant, remember dominant traits and recessive traits, Mendel chapter.
Yes, sir.
So if it is not a dominant disease, then it's not an issue, because if it's a recessive disease, then you need, the only time the child is under problem is when it gets both the faulty genes. But there is also another way. You can get, these two can get married, and the moment the female gets pregnant, you can go for the specific test of this gene, right? And know that whether two copies are both faulty or it's okay. Do you understand? But how, this awareness will only come when you already know. So it's very important to look at, and there is a list of such diseases which are getting more and more frequent in today's society, including mental retardedness, microencephaly, Down syndrome. So all these things can be tested for right at the beginning. Okay. So in such conditions, medical termination of pregnancy becomes unavoidable, and actually it becomes necessary. So write down MTP. Medical termination of pregnancy is the process of legally aborting the embryo, legally aborting the embryo in cases where the continuation of pregnancy, in cases where the continuation of pregnancy is detrimental or fatal. Detrimental, this is the word, is detrimental or fatal to either mother or developing baby. Mother or developing baby. Okay. And we discussed some of these things, right? The mother gets allergy to her own baby. She's not able to carry the baby, or if the baby grows, then the mother will not be able to deliver it, and her life is at risk, or something which is related to genetic disorders. In those cases, it is allowed, but it has to be properly advised and regulated and done with the consent of medical officials. Parents cannot decide in this case. They can decide to not go it, but they cannot decide that we have to do it. Only a doctor can decide that, okay, this has to be done now. Would you like to do this? Do you understand, Mamuna and Minashi?
Yes.
Yes. So this is the issue with before birth. Like, these are some problems. Sex determination, abortion is a problem. What is other other social problems that we face due to reproductive health. If everyone is reproductively healthy, let's say, and if every human is reproducing without a check and a balance, then what can happen? What is the problem? Problem is of population stabilization. What is population stabilization?
The population will increase if everyone starts being healthy reproductively.
Or overpopulation, right?
Yes.
What is the problem with overpopulation? But so it sounds very I don't know, it sounds very bad to say this, that if everyone is reproductively healthy, then everyone will reproduce and population will keep on increasing. So what to do? Should we make humans sterilize? Like should we make them infertile? No, right? We cannot do
No,
it.
but if a person is reproductively healthy, also he or she should be stable enough to educate the child, right?
Yes, but if let's say someone is a billionaire or a millionaire and he's stable enough financially to raise 10 kids or 15 kids with no problem. So should everyone who's stable enough to raise X number of kids be allowed to raise X number of kids? Now that is a question which is under debate. It has lots and lots of prospects. It has humanitarian prospect that you are asking a couple to not have more than X number of child. How can you do that? Then your answer could be that we can do that because there are millions of people living in this country and the resources are limited. So there is a rule in the country to not go beyond X number of kids, right? So which is like, for example, the one child policy that China implemented. You know about that policy? It's not like they will kill anyone who will have more than one child, but then what will happen is, if you have more than one child, you will not get many benefits from the government that you get if you have just one child or if you have two kids. So like India and many countries always propagate this thing that you should have two kids. All these slogans about family planning, population control, they say that try to have two kids. If you have two kids, you will get these benefits with your bank system and things like that. You understand? So we start
Yes.
incentivizing, we start giving incentives to those who decide to have less kids. So that could be done. That is also humanitarian, but the choice again is with the person. Like if a person says, no, I'll go and have, like you say, 8 kids, yeah, you can do that, you can have that. But the point is, after one point of time, you are able to sustain because you have all the resources. But where are you taking the resources from a common pool, from a common population, right? From earth only, right? You are not generating your own resources. You understand? For example, food, it's limited. Yes or no?
Yes.
Agricultural resources, even employment is limited for some time, unless and until you make new job opportunities which cannot be made very fast. Every year you cannot start a company who will start recruiting lakhs of people. But if birth rate keeps on increasing and death rate keeps decreasing, then overpopulation will ultimately lead to chaos. There will be more mouths to feed, then there will be food in the world. There will be more skin to cover, then there will be clothes in the world. There will be more uh, like throats to quest the thirst, then there will be uh, clean water to drink. You understand? And then the problem will arise because of another social factor, which is called unequal distribution of resources, money, and finances. So rich will be able to survive, but poor will not be able to survive. Yes. And you will
Yes.
see that having more kids is the problem with both rich and poor alike. The problem is that poor faces and the wrath more, because if a poor person, a homeless person, someone who's a daily wage worker or a very poor labor, if he has more kids, like 5, 10 kids, because of not like he's not aware about certain things, contraceptives, where he can avoid having more kids. But if he has more kids, he will not be able to feed them. Then all of them will be uneducated, unemployed, and will go to either labor related work or beggary. You understand? Because
Yes.
somehow they have to eat, right? And that will increase the kind of population in the society which will be not having resources, not having education, not having skills. Okay. And the problem on the other side is, if someone is rich and they can just, hoard resources, they can buy whatever they want, they are raising many kids, so they are taking all that resources which could have been available for others, but now it's not available because some wealthy people have monopoly over a lot of resources. So both the things are a problem. Overpopulation in general is a problem. Okay. So but how can we tackle this problem? So we discussed and understood the problem in detail, but how to tackle it? We cannot ban having kids. What can we do?
Using the contraceptives.
We can make them aware to not have kids which are not planned. So we can make them aware for family planning, plan kids, and in between, whenever you are not planning kids, then you should use contraceptives so that you do not have a kid after every sexual intercourse. The female does not get pregnant, because once she gets pregnant, then abortion is a much legally related issue. You cannot abort a kid, but what can you do? You can prevent from uh, you can prevent fertilization, you can prevent pregnancy. So these kind of things we can do. Also there are certain factors associated, like mortality rate. In a country where there are the mortality rate of infants, like babies which are born, die a lot because of diseases and disorders or unhygienic conditions or things like that, there it becomes even difficult. Because in previous time, when the medical facilities were not very good, people used to plan families, like they used to have more kids because they were not sure that every kid will survive. You understand? And it is a true thing. you know Even our own grandfathers and great grandfathers used to plan families like that, because anything, a tuberculosis, cholera, pneumonia can just take a kid's life, right? And kids dying was very common early on, when the facilities, the medical infrastructure was not developed, but now it is. So it can help us to stabilize the population, which earlier was not possible. Yes, you understand, Mamun and Minashi?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so we'll take from here in the next class, and I'll tell you what we will talk about. We'll talk about all the contraceptive methods in the next class, both for males and females. And we will also talk about sexually transmitted diseases. If we do not, what are the other problems of having unprotected copulation or unprotected sexual intercourse? So read this chapter from NCERT. It's not a very big chapter in terms of concepts, but it has a lot of things to remember. Okay, so we will try to categorize into different categories so it becomes easier to remember. So that we'll do in the next class. Okay, Mamun and Minashi,
Okay, sir.
any doubts, anything you want to ask?
No.
Okay, good night, take care, and see you in the
Thank
next
you, sir.
class. Please read this chapter, finish it. So we will